I may be a white boy, but I'm not stupid. I know where the power is. I know where you think I'm joking. I learned a long time ago about the...
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a very, very, very interesting segment on CNN in which progressive failed political candidate for the House of Representatives, Nina Turner, actually had a moment of truth on CNN in regards to criticism for the Biden administration and the fact that he has failed to show any type of real empathy, sympathy, or any type of real concern about the East Palestine crisis, a crisis that has resulted in residents in that town / area actively being poisoned. Okay, and she's gonna go off on CNN again in a segment that, again, you don't see too often on CNN, in which, again, you're actually hearing some truth come out of her mouth in regards to the Biden administration and how they choose to treat certain people in this country. And she's also going to touch on the fact that you have people like Joy Behar in the media basically implying or strongly suggesting that the people of East Palestine deserved what happened to them because they voted for Trump. Now, before I get in this, inevitably people are going to say in the comment section that, oh, Nina Turner's woke, she's a progressive. Yes, I know she's woke and she's a progressive. I strongly disagree with her probably like 80-90% of the time, especially when it comes to her, being woke on racial issues and race topics. She's definitely a OG race hustler, right? Again, I disagree with her quite a bit. I've done at least a couple videos where I've been very critical of Nina Turner. She's extremely woke, okay? And just because I somewhat agree with a lot of the things she's saying in this segment doesn't mean that I agree with her or that I am endorsing her or anything like that, right? I think that it is important, regardless of whether or not you agree with somebody politically, if they say something that you do agree with, I think it is important to highlight the things that they're saying. I'm not that politically partisan where I can't, listen to somebody from the other side and there's something they say that I agree with, I can point out and say, hey, yeah, I agree with this. I think that you have a point here. And that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the clip.
You, Nina Turner, you are a daughter of Ohio. I know you've been to East Palestine.
Yes.
Do you think that the administration is doing enough?
No. The state administration is not doing enough. I'm not pleased with Governor Mike DeWine, who actually drunk some of the water, giving people confidence that that water is okay, when in fact that EPA didn't do the deepest dive that they can do to deal with the carcinogens that are there, the air, the water. No, and when I went there, then I saw both fear and anger in the eyes of the people there. I had a local guide. His name is John. He grew up in and around that area, and also Jess. And I got a chance to talk to some of the people. And one lady that I talked to, she said, I never want to see another vehicle carrying chemicals come through my community again. And so while you have some on the GOP side saying less government, you have the residents of East Palestine saying that government is not doing enough. And they have been, not just them, they have been failed by subsequent many administrations. It's not just the Trump administration, it was the Obama administration, now it's the Biden administration. So now we have the facts, they're out there. The NTSB said this could have been avoided. The thing is, what are we going to do to solve the short-term and the long-term needs of the people? And then just one more point.
Yeah.
For the neoliberals who say that the residents of that area deserve what they are getting because they voted for President Donald J. Trump, it is abhorrent. This is about poverty. This is about poor, working class white people who are enduring some of the same things that poor, working class black people endure, whether it's Flint, Cleveland, or Jackson, Mississippi. And so I want to lay it out that the cultist behavior in politics right now, it is a sin and a shame that when people are suffering to this magnitude, you got people who will fix their mouths, to quote my grandmother, to say that they are getting what they deserve. What they deserve is clean air, clean food, clean water. They deserve relief, both in the short term and also in the long term.
Yeah, so I think the only thing there that I think I didn't really agree with Nina Turner, what she said, was, this idea that, well, Republicans calling for less government, again, somehow, is contrary or in opposition to what these citizens need, okay? And I think that people get mixed up when Republicans or conservatives say less government. We mean less unnecessary government, right? That is what we mean. Okay, but there are plenty of conservatives that are in support of necessary government. And in this situation right here, in regards to the cause of what happened, you had a wheel bearing overheat. Okay, now the NTSB report came out. Preliminary findings basically indicate that, that's a part of what caused the accident. Now, we don't know exactly what regulatory change or what about more government could have prevented this from happening, but we do know that Trump's deregulation had nothing to do with this happening, right? However, that doesn't keep people like Pete Buttigieg from trying to blame Trump for what happened instead of taking responsibility for the fact that, like Nina Turner said, this administration has been in power for 2 years, and if there was something that could be done about it, why didn't you do anything about it?
Yeah. You mentioned a national political figure who's decided to get involved. It sounds like you're talking about Trump, and then you said, I need your help. How can he help?
Well, one thing he could do is express support for reversing the deregulation that happened on his watch. I heard him say he had nothing to do with it, even though it was in his administration. So if he had nothing to do with it, and they did it in his administration against his will, maybe he could come out and say that he supports us moving in a different direction. We're not afraid to own our policies when it comes to raising the bar on regulation. And I've got to think that him indicating that this is something that everybody, no matter how much you disagree on politics and presidential campaigns, can get behind. Higher fines, tougher regulations on safety, Congress untying our hands on braking rules, all the other things that go with that, that'd be a nice thing for him to do.
Yeah, so again, this is the Biden administration. Just, again, passing the blame here, okay, because, they don't want to acknowledge that, okay, all those things that Pete is talking about, again, I don't know what about those things would have prevented this from happening, but why didn't you do those things, right? Because the people of East Palestine are not necessarily concerned about the left-right conflict, okay, and the blame game going back and forth here about why this happened. They're just concerned about necessary government, right? I think everybody agrees with that. When these types of things happen, the government should come in and help fix what's happening, regardless of the politics of the government versus the politics of the area. Again, this is what the residents of East Palestine are actually saying.
When they blame a left side or a right side or this and back and forth, we're not tired of it's that. Not about it's about our town now and people not being able to drink the water, about kids having rations. It's about this thing. That's what this is about.
Norfolk Southern. What do they really owe this community?
They owe this community a lot. They owe us property value. They owe us our health. They owe us 5-10 years from now when things are going on.
They're going to make their money, man. The trains are going to roll no matter what. Whether we're here or not, we're just ants to them. Industrial accidents can be prevented. Every industrial accident that's ever happened in the country can be prevented. Preventative maintenance.
Trump in 2018, I get the policies. The policies weren't great. That's fine. And you know what? If Trump has to take a little bit of the blame, I'm good with that. But you know what? This administration has had the House, the Senate, the presidency for the last 2 years. They changed a lot of policies.
They imposed a contract and stopped the rail workers from striking. I mean, tell me a little bit. Do you feel like the rail workers should have struck?
Absolutely, they should have, because of what has happened.
If Donald Trump was in power right now, what kind of things would you expect him to do to make a situation like this right?
Well, it's not about what I would expect Donald Trump to do. It's about what I would expect the leader of our country to do. Yeah. And if Donald Trump was here to do something, if he was the president, I would expect him to do the same thing that Biden would do, and that would be to come in here and fix up what needs to be fixed up.
We're not wealthy, we're not the top 1%, but
right.
We just want
we're not after for money, we're after for fixing so we can stay where we've lived forever.
Yeah, so to me, that doesn't sound like politics, right? That doesn't sound unreasonable. That just sounds like, hey, we just want the people in charge to help us out, to show that they care about us. Again, regardless of your politics, regardless of, what you believe in politically, just do your job, right? Just do your job. That's it. But again, Biden won't even show up. I don't think that Trump showed up and started blaming Biden and the Biden administration for what happened. I think Trump showed up. He helped out in the best way that he could. And he said, look, Biden should be here, right? Biden should be here. And, he should be showing his support and helping out just like everybody else is. But instead, Biden went to Ukraine, okay, because he seems to care more about Ukraine and what's going on in Eastern Europe than he does about what's going on in America. But again, I think what Nina Turner is getting at here in regards to, how some of the people in the liberal media have either ignored this crisis or have treated this crisis because of who these people are is, I think, spot on. These are middle-class people, some of whom happen to be poor, right? But they're primarily middle-class, white working people who happen to vote Republican, who happen to vote Trump, okay? And that doesn't mean that they should be ignored because Democrats can't gain anything politically from showing up, right? They can't rally their base behind showing up for these people because they have different politics. And I think that we've seen from the Biden administration that they tend to only care about issues that they can gain something from politically. Like, for example, the Tyre Nichols situation, okay, in which, again, you have one black man who got beat up, okay, by police officers, right? He got beaten up. Again, tragic situation, terrible situation. You had Kamala Harris show up to the funeral. You had Al Sharpton there. You had all the civil rights leaders. I mean, again, Democrats are all on that, okay, because there was something that can be gained from that situation politically. But I don't think that situation was as tragic as what's happening in East Palestine, right? I think that, that situation with Tyre Nichols does not deserve a federal response. This deserves a federal response, okay? We're going to have a federal government, right? We need a federal government for situations like this, okay, where people pool their resources together and they go and help out other Americans in need, right? It's just like if you had a hurricane or some type of other natural disaster. This is why you had a federal government. But again, you're not seeing Kamala there. You're not seeing Joe there. They're not showing up because, again, there's nothing to be politically gained from it. Look at what happened in Waukesha, right? You had 6, 7 people, old elderly people got ran over, okay, by a criminal. Biden didn't even acknowledge it. Kamala didn't acknowledge it. They didn't have anything to say about it. Well, these were white grannies, right? Can't gain anything from it politically. But again, when it comes to something like, again, a Tyre Nichols situation, what happened with the Buffalo shooting, Uvalde, something where they can gain something out of it politically, they're all on it, right? And again, I just think that it's amazing how that works. And I think that's one of the things that is the saddest part of our politics is how politicians only respond to things if they can gain something from it politically. Again, they only care about you, again, if they can get something out of you. And that's sad, man. It really is. When tragic situations happen, they deserve attention, okay? If people in that area are suffering, regardless of their politics, okay? Just because they voted for Trump, that doesn't make them any less human, or that doesn't mean that they deserve what happened to them, like Joy Behar strongly suggested. And there should have been more liberals and more Democrats calling out Joy Behar for saying that, for even suggesting that, this is something they might have voted for, like they voted to poison themselves. That's ridiculous, right? That's ridiculous. One, because it's just false, right? Trump's policies had nothing to do with it. But again, people would not vote to poison themselves. And there should be more blame put on this company for why this happened more than anything. But again, we can't really have this conversation because the mainstream liberal media, they're much more concerned about, well, how do we make sure that Biden doesn't get blamed and how we try to, make sure that Trump actually takes some blame for it, even though Trump had nothing to do with it. So again, hey, I disagree with Nina Turner probably 95% of the time, but this is one of the rare occasions where I do agree with her, and I think she was kind of spot on with this. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.